Prince Harry thought he was escaping the royal machine. But according to explosive claims now circulating around royal insiders, the biggest mistake of his life may have happened after he left the palace, not before. Because buried deep inside a legal document allegedly signed during the chaos of 2020 was one clause that could decide who controls Harry's money, his brand, his future, and maybe even the story of his own life. And the most shocking part? Sources connected to royal author Tom Bower claim Harry may not have fully understood what he was signing at all. For years, the public saw the marriage between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as a rebellion against the monarchy. A prince choosing love over tradition, freedom over duty. But behind the headlines, another story may have been unfolding quietly in the background. One built on contracts, financial control, image management, and long-term planning. And according to Bower's latest investigation, the warning signs may have been there from the very beginning. Tom Bower has spent decades going after people most journalists avoid. Politicians, billionaires, media moguls. His reputation comes from digging through timelines, legal records, and interviews until patterns begin to emerge. And when he released his first book about Meghan and Harry, the backlash was immediate. The book painted Meghan as highly strategic, intensely image-conscious, and deeply focused on controlling public perception. Critics called the book unfair. Supporters called it revealing. But what caught Bower's attention most wasn't the outrage itself. It was how aggressively people allegedly tried to stop others from talking. According to reports surrounding the investigation, several sources became nervous after participating. Some reportedly stopped communicating altogether. Others allegedly received reminders about old confidentiality agreements and legal exposure. That reaction made Bower believe there was still more hidden beneath the surface. So he kept digging. He reportedly spoke with former palace staff, Hollywood professionals, legal advisors, and people connected to the Sussex business world. And while many stories differed in detail, one theme kept repeating itself: control. Former staff allegedly described an environment where access to Harry became increasingly limited. Friends drifted away. Family communication reportedly became strained. And over time, insiders claimed Harry appeared more isolated than ever before. But according to people close to the royal situation, those patterns didn't suddenly begin after the wedding. Some believe they started long before Harry even entered Meghan's life. Before becoming the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle had already lived through one very public transformation. Her marriage to Hollywood producer Trevor Engelson ended quietly in 2013, long before royal fame entered the picture. At the time, the divorce barely made headlines. But years later, people familiar with the situation allegedly told Bower that Meghan approached the legal process with unusual precision. According to those claims, she paid close attention to future earning rights, ownership structures, and long-term financial independence. Nothing was treated casually. Every clause mattered. Whether those reports are completely accurate or not, one thing became clear to people watching her career closely afterward: Meghan rarely allowed herself to become financially dependent on anyone else. And some insiders believe that mindset shaped everything that came later. Around the same period, Meghan's relationship with her father, Thomas Markle, began collapsing publicly. The media frenzy surrounding the royal wedding turned deeply personal, and the family drama exploded across tabloids worldwide. But according to claims tied to Bower's reporting, concerns about media exposure and reputation management had already become a major focus behind the scenes even before the wedding happened. Then came another detail that fueled speculation even more. When Meghan began dating Harry, she reportedly hired the high-powered PR firm Sunshine Sachs surprisingly early into the relationship. Now on its own, that means nothing unusual in Hollywood. Celebrities hire PR firms constantly. But critics later argued the timing suggested Meghan was already thinking carefully about public narrative, media pressure, and long-term image protection from the very start. Whether fair or unfair, that perception stuck. And by the time Harry proposed, some royal observers believed Meghan wasn't simply entering a relationship. She was entering a system prepared. But none of that explains why the alleged 2020 agreement has become such a massive talking point now. To understand that, you have to remember what Harry's life looked like during Megxit. Everything around him was collapsing at once. His relationship with the royal family was imploding publicly. The press pressure became relentless. Security arrangements changed. Financial uncertainty exploded overnight. And for the first time in his entire life, Harry was trying to build an identity completely outside the monarchy. People close to the royal world described him during that period as emotionally exhausted and deeply overwhelmed. And according to Bauer's sources, that was exactly when updated legal paperwork allegedly appeared in front of him. The document reportedly involved changes connected to business ventures, intellectual property, and future revenue structures after the couple stepped back from royal duties. On paper, it may have looked routine, but buried inside the agreement, according to these claims, was language that could have enormous consequences if the marriage ever ended. Specifically, an alleged clause connected to ownership over shared branding, future projects, media ventures, and revenue tied to the Sussex identity itself. That's the part that sent royal commentators into overdrive. Because if true, it would mean the agreement wasn't just about current money. It was about future control. According to the allegations, projects connected to Harry's public image, royal background, or partnerships formed during the marriage could potentially remain tied to structures benefiting Meghan long into the future. And critics believe Harry may have signed everything during the most emotionally unstable period of his adult life. But the paperwork alone wasn't what worried Bauer most. It was what happened afterward. Starting around 2022, observers noticed a shift. Meghan began launching projects increasingly tied to her own personal identity rather than a shared Sussex image. Trademark filings, solo media ventures, lifestyle branding, podcast deals, many appeared structured independently. Then came reports about separate business entities and California LLC structures allegedly connected to Meghan's ventures. Financial experts interviewed around the story claimed this type of setup can create strong legal separation between individual and shared assets depending on how money flows through the companies. Again, none of this proves wrongdoing. But to critics following the situation, it appeared highly strategic, especially while Harry was spending enormous time and money fighting legal battles in the UK. And that's where the speculation became darker. Some insiders began questioning why Harry continued pursuing costly lawsuits despite warnings about financial risks. According to Bauer's reporting, certain advisors allegedly believed those liabilities could eventually weigh far more heavily on Harry personally than on Meghan. If true, the financial imbalance could become devastating in a future separation. And then came the move that truly ignited divorce rumors. In 2026, Meghan reportedly reconnected with Sunshine Sachs. To the public, it looked like another normal Hollywood PR decision. But entertainment insiders saw something else. Crisis management firms like Sunshine Sachs are famous for helping celebrities navigate scandals, reputation crises, and high-profile separations. In Hollywood, timing matters. And according to people familiar with celebrity divorce strategy, narrative management often begins months before legal filings ever happen. The goal is simple: control public sympathy first. Because once the public chooses a hero and a villain, that perception becomes incredibly difficult to reverse. That's why some royal commentators believe the real battle may never happen in court at all. It may happen in the media. And for Harry, that possibility is especially dangerous. Because according to people who worked around the couple, Harry gradually became more isolated over the years. Old friendships faded. Relationships with family fractured. Trusted advisors disappeared from his inner circle. By the time his court appearances in London became increasingly emotional and unpredictable, many observers believed they were watching a man under enormous psychological strain. Not just angry. Lost. That's the tragedy at the center of this entire story. Not the contracts. Not the trademarks. Not even the money. It's the possibility that Harry may have sacrificed everything: his royal role, his family relationships, his country, his privacy, believing he was building a new life based entirely on trust. And now, according to Bauer's critics and supporters alike, the question hanging over everything is terrifyingly simple. Did he ever truly understand the system being built around him? Because if the allegations about that 2020 agreement are even partially true, the consequences could stretch far beyond a divorce. Control over branding, future earnings, business ownership, public narrative, possibly even custody leverage. And by the time the full picture becomes public, it may already be too late to undo any of it. Maybe that's why this story keeps pulling people in. Not because it's about royalty, but because underneath the palace's lawsuits and headlines, it's really a story about trust. A man who walked away from one world believing love would protect him from it, only to discover the real battle may have started the moment he signed his name.